Okay, doing some fuel system testing today. I made up all of the connectors with nylon fittings, press-on compression fittings, and now I'd like to test to make sure it's a dual tank truck. And in, I believe, 90, this is 91, they changed from the fuel pump mounted on the rail along with a diverter valve for the fuel tank selection to integrated into the fuel pumps. I think it's called the FDM, fuel delivery module. How I understand it is basically a check valve. So if you have the rear tank selected from the cab, it's supplying the motor, and the return side also goes back into the same tank. If the FDM doesn't work, or something is wrong with how you have it plumbed into each tank, with the rear tank running, it could fill the midship tank. So anyway, I haven't powered on these pumps at all. I have, let me bring you in close, I'll show you I'm just gonna touch it real quick to a battery and make sure that the pump at least spins. And then I'm going to put some fuel in the tank, pressurize the system, check for leaks, make sure that the routing's right, and then crucially, make sure that the return from the motor back comes back into each tank respectively. Okay, so I probed out the wires. I first noticed that the orange and the orange with I guess there's no tracer on that. The orange wire and then the black with the white tracer are thicker than the others. And then I did a continuity test between these two pins, got continuity, and between the other pins I did not. And then I looked up a diagram online through various forums, and I think I remember seeing that the yellow and the two other wires were for the fuel sender. So it makes sense, bigger wires, continuity between the two. I also saw in that same diagram that orange was ground. So my theory is if I provide battery voltage right to those two terminals, the pump will at least spin for a second, and then I know that I have the right pins and the pump works. In that in a moment. So the 3/8 lines are the supply side. So that's this one on the rear tank, and I have it going up into some bent 1 foot lines that I made, and I used nylon with compression fit quick connects. So I have the supply line going into this bent quick connect steel line, going into another quick connect, going into, I made two of these, one's 3/8 and one's 5/16. 5/16 is the return. I've also marked the flow of the fuel as I understand it anyway. So in the rearmost manifold, I guess you'd call it, the rear tank will supply fuel this way, and then as long as it doesn't go back up into this tank on the supply side, so something would have to be wrong with the FDM in this tank, it will bypass that. It's a three-way barb fitting, and it will go straight to the motor. I actually have it disconnected at the fuel filter side, so that this first test, I'm gonna make sure it spins, I'm gonna put 5 gallons in it, make sure that it actually is sucking fuel and can pump it into a little container, and then I'll connect it into the fuel filter, and then we'll send the fuel all the way up to the motor. It'll loop back around, come down the return side here into this manifold, this front one, and then again, assuming that the FDM is working correctly in this tank, the fuel coming back this way cannot go up and into this tank, and instead will flow straight back here, and it's just reversed the other way. The supply side of this tank goes on the back one, up, down to the motor, and the return comes back up into this tank. Okay, I'm gonna touch it just real quick to make sure it turns. Let's see. Here we go. Yep. Very good. So that pump's turning. Since we're here, let's test the other one. All right. So I'm going to follow the same idea with the last one. We have, now it's orange and red, but orange is the same on the other one, so I'm just going to make a guess. That orange remains to be ground. So plug in my black test lead to this terminal. Red, we're gonna do positive. And then we'll give it a little tap here. Touch the positive. Yep. First new gas that this truck will have seen since 2018, at least. That's about half. I'm gonna bring you in and let's take a look inside there. Yep, got fuel. All right, stick a rag in here to stop the fumes from getting out. Let's do our test. Yep. Okay. I see it in the catch can. You can see it there. So now I'm going to connect that up into the actual filter. All right, so I'm going to turn it on and see if fuel makes it up to the fuel rail here. See if there's any leaks. Anything yet? I don't smell nothing or see nothing. Putting a camera in here, so hopefully as I'm doing my test pump we see some start to come back here. Oh, I see a ripple. Is that the fuel coming back? Might be, which would be good because it's coming back to that one. This one looks dry. I don't smell nothing. Any leaks? No. Wait a minute, something doesn't make sense. Hold on a minute, I just saw that. Wait a minute now. This is actually the return line. Hold on. So I'm thinking how to test further, because it seems like the fuel isn't returning from these fuel lines here. Now there should be a Schrader valve somewhere. Where, oh where? Is it? I thought it was up here. There it is. Back in here. So let me see if is this supply? Oh yeah. She's got fuel and pressure too, so let's see. That's on this line here, which is the bottom. Yeah, which is here. So I'm wondering if I need to put vacuum on here. I wonder if that fuel pressure regulator is not allowing fuel back down, maybe. I'm just going to apply some light vacuum to this pressure regulator. I don't have the right size hose, so I'm trying to use a zip tie and pressure. Let's go see if that did anything. I don't know. No. So I gotta get vacuum. Yeah, there's 5 and it's holding, you see? It's holding. Alright, well, that fitting was fighting me, and before I broke it, I decided to just go ahead and take this off now. I'll be back when this is off. Yeah, so was this allowing fuel through? Because a whole bunch of fuel just came out. I think it was getting stopped up here. Go get a rag. Okay, so you can see the fuel there. So the question is, if I try to blow from this side to this side with no vacuum, does it pass fuel? All right, so if high pressure fuel is entering the regulator, then surely vacuum, that's the number if anyone needs it, would maybe open this and allow fluid to pass, right? But if I grab this and try to blow on it, nothing. Now, that's 15 psi of vacuum. Nothing. 20. Nothing. So I wonder if this is clogged. Put a vacuum on that line directly. It's holding pressure. Well, I went and got a replacement. Looks a little different, but I think it'll fit. But it did the same thing. When I try to blow here, nothing passes, and I think that's expected. What's confusing me though is when I give it vacuum, like 12 or something like that PSI, and blow, still nothing. So either they're both bad, or my understanding and expectation is just wrong and this is good. Maybe this is still the factory one. So I'm thinking I'm going to use compressed air to build up the pressure on that side of it and see. Since I got that replacement one, I'm not too worried about maybe breaking it. So let's see if I'll see. So that actually, let me get a little bit of, when I put pressure through here, that shot out. Air came through that other one. Let's see, this new one, same thing? Yes. Be right back. So if I put some WD-40 in here, definitely came out. Okay, so maybe that one's fine. Maybe the original one's fine. I'm gonna try one other thing. I'm going to try to blow air from the motor. Well, let me show you. This is what I was trying to say. So I'm going to take compressed air and blow through the smaller hole, which is the return side, and make sure that air can go all the way through back down over here. Oh. I went and looked at the footage, so maybe it was working this whole time. Where'd my little catch can go? Here it is. So I'm gonna stick it back inside. All right. I'm gonna put the old one back in and pressurize the system again. And let's see what happens. Okay, let's see. There it is. Perfect. So maybe I just didn't build up enough pressure to pop the regulator. I suppose that's a good sanity check though. And that means that this thing's full pressured and not leaking. All right then, so what I need to do is put a fitting on that and latch it into here for the engine return. And then the final test will be that the return comes back in there. Let's do another look in here now. So with it catching and returning to that catch can, let's see if we stick the camera in here, if we get that same kind of return-like behavior as we had before. That clearly wasn't actually return. Okay, get the engine return plumbed in, so it's gonna have to fill up this line and then continue back on in there. I'm gonna actually put the camera in here. Let's take a look. Let's try this other tank. I got 3 more gallons-ish. All right. And then let's put the camera down in there. See if you hear the same thing. Okay, so in summary, we're good. With that pump on, I only ever see fuel in this tank. With that pump on, I will oversee fuel in that tank. Confirm that the return is as expected. So I'm going to depressurize the system with that Schrader valve and then start cleaning up.